Commission resumes. Mr. Badenhorst, I believe you're going to call your witness this morning. I'm sorry, I was informed that the chamber was ready for us, but no, I understand. Obviously, I was misinformed. Can you tell me why we're waiting, why we didn't get an affidavit from her? Can you tell me why we didn't get an affidavit from her? We've had affidavits from witnesses so far. We didn't get an affidavit from her. Is there a reason?
I don't know the answer to that question. The document that was submitted can obviously now be affirmed under oath, and that's perhaps the solution. I do apologize if we filed the wrong format.
Yes, no, I see. The witness sits at the chair there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The witness has no objection to taking the oath.
Thank you. Would you stand, please, Ms. Shabangu? Do you swear that the evidence you will give before this commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Would you please raise your right hand and say, I swear so help me God? Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you,
Mr. Badenhorst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I take it you want to, the statement which is not in affidavit form, I take it you want that to be an exhibit.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So shall we call that quadruple? Is it an exhibit already, Ms. Bennett?
It's quadruple C5.
Quadruple?
C5.
Thank you. Is there any other document you wish to hand in?
Mr. Chairman, there's only one page which is simply a correction of one paragraph in that statement. We have prepared it in a written form, which I propose, if it's acceptable to you, should be marked quadruple C 5.1, which will be handed to you in a moment. Quadruple C 5.1. Yes, it has its heading. It is called Corrected Paragraph 12 of the statement by Ms. Susan Shabangu, former Minister of Mineral Resources, signed on 22 January 2014. I will deal with that in the course of the evidence. Indeed, we have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I proceed? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Shabangu, good morning to you. You were formerly the Minister of Mineral Resources. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You are now the Minister in the Presidency responsible for women.
That's correct.
And you were appointed to your new position with effect from 25 May 2014.
That's correct.
Minister, you have submitted a written statement to the Commission which you signed on the 22nd of January 2014.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, we have identified that statement as quadruple C5, and I have mentioned to the Commission that the Minister requires or requests a correction in relation to paragraph 12 of that statement. To me, I just want to. Minister, first of all, could you just confirm that the corrected statement, paragraph 12, is what you regard as a corrected version of the original paragraph 12?
I do confirm paragraph 12.
Subject to that correction, do you confirm the correctness of quadruple C5, your original statement, which you signed on 22 January 2014?
That's correct.
Very briefly, Minister, if you could just explain to the Chairman that correction which you requested this morning.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, the correction which I requested to be done was in relation to para 12, because if you read the paragraph on the main statement, Mr.
Perhaps,
Chairman.
do you have the original statement? It
I
might be
do.
an idea just to compare the two
Okay.
for the benefit of the Commission.
I have it, Mr. Chairman. If we look at para 12 in the main document, it reads as follows. I was in Cape
It's on page 5.
I must start
Thank you,
from
Mr. Chairman.
page, yes, that's page 5. Can I proceed, Mr. Chairman? Thank you.
Please do.
It reads as follows. I was in Cape Town at that time, scheduled to attend a cabinet committee meeting on national planning the same afternoon, 15 August 2012. It turned out that Mr. Ramaphosa was also in Cape Town, so he suggested that we meet to discuss the deteriorating situation in Marikana. As I considered the situation in a very serious light, I agreed to meet with Mr. Ramaphosa, which we did shortly before the cabinet. Hence the correct
For the Cabinet Committee meeting.
cabinet committee meeting. Hence, on reading the paragraph 12, I realized that it does not reflect the true processes of the day, but the content is the same. Hence, I thought that it's important for me to correct it in making sure that para 12 does make sense. And I want to read the corrected version. I was in Cape Town on 15 August to attend a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Economic Sector, Employment Infrastructure Development. Mr. Ramaphosa was also in Cape Town to attend the National Planning Commission meeting on the same day. He suggested that we meet to discuss the deteriorating situation in Marikana. As I considered the situation in a very serious light, I agreed to meet with Mr. Ramaphosa, which we did shortly before the Cabinet Committee meeting. If you read the main statement, it assumes that the National Planning Commission is a cabinet committee, and that's what we're correcting. The National Planning Commission, it had its own different processes led by former Minister Trevor Manuel, and the National Planning Commissioners were not participating in the cabinet. That's why I thought that we need to give effect in correcting that paragraph.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shabangu. Minister, your statement, which we do not, Mr. Chairman, intend to go through, it is before the Commission. Your statement responds essentially to certain questions which were raised by the evidence leaders. Is that correct, Minister Shabangu?
Yes, it's correct.
And those questions are stated in paragraph, in the initial paragraph at the beginning of the statement, which is in paragraph 6.
That's correct. Yes, para 6, it raises the issues that I make this statement as at the request of the Commission's evidence leaders to address the following questions which were submitted to me. 1, I was told about the problems of violence at Marikana. What I was told about the problems / violence at Marikana. 2, when and by whom was I informed of the problem at Marikana. 3, what my response was to the information. So that's the correct, that's why, or that's what made me to be here, Mr. Chairman, to come and give evidence to the Commission.
Yes, and Minister Shabangu, it is correct that you informed the Commission through your legal representatives at day 1 of the Commission, as you record in your statement, that you will participate and assist in the Commission's inquiry.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct to say, indeed, I was willing to come and participate and contribute to the Commission in making sure that as it continues with its proceedings, they are able, I can also share my own experiences during this process and in assisting the Commission in finding a closure to the matter.
Minister, the incident which the Commission is investigating is defined or described in its terms of reference. Subject to correction, Mr. Chairman, I think there's one small error about the Thursday, at least the start date of the period being Saturday, 9 August, as I recall, and that has been corrected.
Yes, it was Thursday, the 9th of August. There was a meeting of some of the strikers, or the future strikers, I think they were then. It was on Thursday the 9th. Then.
Yes. From until the Thursday 16, as it pleases the Commission. Minister, I think you are aware of the matter which the Commission is investigating and how that incident is described. The one paragraph in the Commission's terms of reference which I would like to put to you is paragraph 1.5, which refers specifically to the department which was your portfolio as Minister at that relevant time. And that, I'll read it to you, it's paragraph 1.5. And what I'm going to ask you, Minister, if you can just hear that paragraph again, and I want you simply to answer very simply and briefly to the question put. And I'm sure that the questioners may wish to explore that.
No, 1.5 has been deleted.
Oh, I see.
By a proclamation issued by the President
I see,
in
Mr.
May of this year.
Oh, I see.
That has substantially reduced the ambit of the investigations being conducted by the Commission. But in paragraph 1.1.3 of the Commission, of the proclamation, there is a reference to the actions and failures, perhaps, of Lonmin.
Yes.
Now, 1.1.3 and 1.5, of course, go together,
yes,
because Lonmin had to perform under the social and labour plan.
yes,
That had to be monitored by the Department
yes,
of Mineral Resources. The extent to which the Department discharged its responsibilities in relation to that monitoring is no longer a matter for us to investigate.
I understand.
But we, in terms of a ruling we gave yesterday, we do intend to spend some time on looking at one particular aspect, or the evidence leaders proposed to spend some time looking at one particular aspect of Lonmin's performance. But so I think I should explain that to you, because clearly it's something that's not been brought to your attention.
Yes, I appreciate that. I'm aware of the ruling, Mr. Chairman, so with respect, perhaps what I'll do is the Commission, the Minister, as you will have seen from the statement, was requested to deal with specific issues, which she has done. And that concludes our evidence in chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Botnos. Ms. Pillay, you were going to cross-examine, I understand, on behalf of the evidence leaders. Can you
Chair.
give me the order in which the various parties are going to cross-examine the witness?
Chair, Mr. Wesley has the
And the
order.
time allocation. So Mr. Wesley going to do that. The first of the evidence leaders, how long are they going
Yes,
to be
Chair,
given?
thank you. The evidence leaders have 90 minutes. They'll be followed by the Legal Resources Centre with 30 minutes, the injured and arrested parties with 60 minutes, the families with 30 minutes, Lonmin then with 30 minutes, and then re-examination of half an hour as far as is necessary.
I see.
Thank you very
much.
I wonder if my learned friend can just do it a little
Well,
slower.
I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Evidence leaders, that's Ms. Pillay, 90 minutes. LRC, the Legal Resources Centre, 30 minutes. Injured and arrested persons, 60 minutes. Families, 30 minutes. Lonmin, 30 minutes. And the re-examination by Mr. Bardenhorst, SC, 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, if we may begin with a bit of housekeeping. What we've done is we've compiled all the predominantly media articles and speeches which we intend to rely on, Chair, into one bundle, which I propose we mark as Exhibit Quadruple Q1. Q. And you'll see, Chair, that the bundle is paginated, so if we refer to a particular page, it will be 1 point, whatever the page number is. we can call it the evidence leaders bundle.
Triple Q. Is not
Microphone.
No, it's
Microphone. Chair, I think the microphone.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot to turn my microphone on. Quadruple Q1 is the evidence leaders bundle. You've given us the bundle, which contains 27 pages, and there are 10 items in it. So I suppose what we will do is the first item, which is a media article headed Shabangu in Brabpan while chaos persists in Lonmin, which appeared in MoneyWeb on the 14th of August. That will be quadruple Q1.1. And the 10th item is a copy of the address by the Minister at the special parliamentary debate following the Marikana tragedy on the 21st of August. So that will be quadruple Q1.10, and then the others will
That's correct,
follow
Chair.
the same line.
Chair, there is a second document, and it's a document we've just handed to you now, and I think we've placed a copy on the witnesses' desk, Minister. It's page 278 of the Lonmin Discovery Bundle, and it's a letter dated 13th of August.
So what should we call that?
That will be quadruple Q2.
Letter from Lonmin to the witness, dated 13 August 2012. And for convenience, I'll just put in brackets Lonmin bundle, pages 278 to 9. Is that all the housekeeping you want to do?
That's the housekeeping, yes, Chair. Good morning, Minister.
Morning.
Minister, if we may begin by looking at Exhibit B4. This, I'm not sure if...
It's not here.
We did give your team notice that the exhibits were going to be used, Minister. I'm not sure if they've got a hard copy for you. It's on the screen before you, Minister. If you can begin with, if we can start with Exhibit B 4.1. And you will see, Minister, that this is an email addressed by Mr. Ramaphosa to Roger Phillimore of Lonmin. And the email, you will see, has been sent on the 15th of August 2012. The important part, Minister, which I'd like to draw your attention to, is the time of the email. And we see that it's sent at 47 minutes past midnight on the 15th. Now, in that email, in paragraph 1, Mr. Ramaphosa refers to discussions he had with you. Now, before we deal with the content of that discussion, Minister, can you just tell us, in terms of your own recollection, if Mr. Ramaphosa is referring to a discussion he had with you and the email is 47 minutes past midnight on the 15th, do you have a recollection of when those discussions were held? You see, in your statement, you refer to telephone calls which you had with Mr. Ramaphosa, or telephone discussions you had on the 15th. I just wanted to check with you whether it's not possible that those discussions were actually on the 14th and not the 15th.
My recollection is that on the 14th, we never had discussions with Mr. Ramaphosa. I know that we had some few calls which we missed between the two of us. But I can't recall about what I can recall is that on the 15th, that's when we had an extensive, sort of a very brief but very detailed discussion.
And that would have been during the day on the 16th, I mean, or could it have been...
Not 16.
Sorry,
not
on the
16.
15th, I apologize.
On the 15th in the morning.
But it wouldn't have been before 47 minutes past midnight?
Definitely not.
So in this email, when Mr. Ramaphosa is referring to these discussions that he had with you, specifically in relation to what was happening at Lonmin, what discussions was he referring to?
Well, I'm unable to respond on his behalf. I mean, I can't understand, because you showing me this. My understanding, Mr. Chairman, is that on the 14th, we didn't have any discussions, which was extensive. But what I know is that we had a very short meeting, a short brief over the phone, just indicating that he'll be in Cape Town, then we can talk about these issues.
Am I correct in saying essentially you had two discussions with him? One telephonic discussion and one face-to-face?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
The face-to-face one was in the afternoon.
No.
Before you went to the Cabinet Committee. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, it was in the morning. Cabinet committees sit in the morning, not in the afternoon. The Economic Cluster Committee sit in the morning. It's a regular CAB committee meeting, which happens on Wednesdays. It was not in the afternoon. Mr. Chairman, can I clarify?
Sorry, can I just want to get clarity in my own mind as to what happened. Your original statement that you corrected said that you were going to attend a Cabinet Committee meeting that afternoon, the afternoon of the 15th. You say the phrase "that afternoon" doesn't appear in the corrected version. So you say that Cabinet Committee meeting was in the morning.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And what time did it start?
Normally, the economic CAB meeting starts at 10:30.
10:30. So, and did this one start at 10:30 or thereabouts?
It always starts at 10:30. It's a standing arrangement.
So at some stage before that, you had a meeting with Mr. Ramaphosa before you went to the
Yes,
Cabinet Committee meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Before I went to the Cabinet meeting, I saw Mr. Ramaphosa.
Where did you meet him?
It was in the morning.
Where?
In Cape Town.
Where? On a big place, Cape Town. Where in Cape Town?
Normally, Cabinet meetings takes place at Tinace.
No, sorry, you're not understanding me. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's my fault. I'm not putting the question clearly enough. Where did you meet Mr. Ramaphosa?
Where?
Where?
In Cape Town.
Yes, I know. Where in Cape Town?
Tinace. That's where we hold. Tinace, yes. That's where we hold, Mr. Chairman, our CAB meetings. Because he was the deputy chair of the National Planning Commission, and the chairperson was Mr. Trevor Manuel, I bumped into him coming from Minister Manuel's office.
So was that in Mark's building?
No. Mr. Manuel's office, it's at Good Hope.
Good Hope.
Which has access into Tinace.
Yes.
And come through the passage which we normally use for the Cabinet meetings.
I see. So you met Mr. Ramaphosa where at Good Hope, or in the Tinace, or in the passage between?
Outside Tinace.
Outside Tinace.
Yes.
And how long was your discussion with him?
It was not very long, because I would say maybe about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, I see. So that was before 10:30 on the Wednesday morning?
It was before 10:30.
Right. Now, you clearly have a recollection that you had the telephone conversation with him earlier that morning. But it appears from contemporaneous email that Mr. Ramaphosa sent to Mr. Phillimore, who's the chairman of Lonmin, at 47 minutes after midnight on the Wednesday morning, that he said he had a discussion with you. He had already had the telephonic discussion with you and had arranged to meet you. So that clearly is in Cape Town, which clearly is a reference to the meeting which you had, as you explained to us. Now, it does look, does it not, as if your memory must be failing you on the question as to when the telephonic conversation took place. I don't think anything turns on it, but it looks as if it must have been on some stage on the Tuesday. Would that be a fair assumption?
Mr. Chairman, I've said there were two. He called me, which was the 14th. I returned his call, and he called me. We had a discussion about having a meeting. We never had it. It's like arranging a meeting, Mr. Chairman, more than having an extensive discussion. That was on the 14th.
Yes. He, of course, does say that he didn't just arrange a meeting. He does say, and I don't know whether you agree with this, perhaps Advocate Pillay will take that up, but he does say that he told you in the telephonic conversation, it would appear, that your silence and inaction about what was happening at Lonmin was bad for you and the government. Now, did he say that, Chair? In the telephonic conversation before the face-to-face meeting?
Well, it did indicate that he's concerned about my silence. Yes. And hence, I never responded to that. I said, let's meet tomorrow.
Yes. Did you say, as he says here, that you were going to issue a statement?
Well, on the 14th, I had indicated that we had started planning, because the matter was coming to our attention as a department, to say, indeed, we are going to respond in relation to what was going on.
By the response, you meant, I take it, that you'd respond by issuing a statement?
Yeah. Clarifying the situation, because there was a sense that it's our responsibility as DMR.
So to go back to the question I asked initially, it does look, would you agree with me, I don't think anything turns on it. It does look, though, as if you had a discussion on the Tuesday at some stage with Mr. Ramaphosa, you'd agree, a discussion of a fairly brief nature, in which you arranged to meet face-to-face the following day in Cape Town. Because you would be there for the Cabinet Committee meeting, and he would be there for an announcement in respect to the National Planning Commission. Is that
correct, Mr. Chairman?
All right, thank you.
Well, Minister, may we look at Exhibit Quadruple J3, which is a summary of the list of calls made by Mr. Ramaphosa to yourself and to Minister Mtetwa. You'll see it will come up on the screen in a few minutes. And you'll see from this list of telephone calls that Mr. Ramaphosa called you, Minister, at 6:34 p.m. on the 14th, and that it appears it's a 5-second telephone call, so it appears that it was probably a message left for you. But there's two further calls on the 14th. There's one at 6:34:59 for 18 seconds, and there's one at 6:35:31 for 218 seconds. Now, do you have recollection of these telephone calls?
Can you do arithmetic for me? How many minutes are they?
It's around 4 minutes, the 218 seconds.
Was it?
218 seconds, around 3.5.
280.
218.
218. Oh, I see. Thank you.
It's about a 3.5 minute conversation.
Yes, it's 3.6 minutes, so just over 3.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it does confirm that we did discuss the issue of meeting.
But your testimony is that there was no content to the meeting in terms of what was happening at Lonmin and what was expected of you or asked of you.
Can you come again?
No, your testimony is that during that telephone call, all that was discussed was an arrangement to meet the next day in Cape Town, but there was no discussion between you and Mr. Ramaphosa in relation to the situation at Lonmin and what he was asking of you.
Mr. Chairman, nothing was asked from me. Hence, I'm saying that when he raised the issue of my silence, I felt that it's an issue for a discussion, and we couldn't do that over the phone. And if he was going to be in Cape Town, I was going to be in Cape Town, I felt it's important for us to meet and discuss the matter.
So you're saying, Minister, that during that telephone call on the 14th, Mr. Ramaphosa did raise with you what he perceived to be your silence on what was happening at Lonmin?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So what we see in B 4.1, we can just go back to B 4.1, when Mr. Ramaphosa refers to a discussion he had with you, where he called you and he told you that your silence and inaction was bad for you and the government, that discussion actually did happen on the 14th.
Well, what he raised, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what he wrote to Mr. Roger, but what I can attest is that indeed I felt it's important for us to talk when we're in Cape Town more than having a telephonic discussion.
Minister, my question is a different one. My question is whether what Mr. Ramaphosa has reflected in this email, is that consistent with your recollection of the telephone call between you and Mr. Ramaphosa on the 14th?
Well, if you talk about what is here, what I can tell you in terms of what is here, it's about the inaction. And on the basis of that, Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to enter into a discussion with him on the matter. Hence, I felt it's important for us to talk about this matter when I see him.
It sounds actually as if you said two things from what he said, and I think you've already agreed with that. But let's just get clarity. He said to you, he spoke to you about your silence, and I take it indicated he didn't think it was a good idea for you to be silent. And then you made two answers, as I understand it. The first thing is we're going to respond, and you've already said you were going to respond by issuing a statement. So you said, we're going to issue a statement. But you then said, then it turned out you'd both be in Cape Town on the Wednesday, and you then said, let's have a meeting and discuss it. Is that essentially what happened?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Now, Minister, according to Mr. Ramaphosa, based on his discussion with you on the 14th, you agreed to issue a statement. Now, I'll take you to the records and we'll show you that, in fact, your spokesman does issue a statement the next day. Now, what I want to clarify with you, was that the outcome of the discussion you had with Mr. Ramaphosa on the 14th?
It did not arise, Mr. Chairman, it did not arise out of our discussion with Mr. Ramaphosa. We already had agreed that we were going to issue a statement, so it does not arise because of that discussion.
Now, when Mr. Ramaphosa refers to your silence and your inaction, Minister, did you agree with him that you had been silent and that there hadn't been sufficient action from you in respect of what was happening at Lonmin?
That's two questions rolled up in one.
Apologize.
I think the first question is, I take it she's, in a sense, responded to the first part because she said, her answer was, we're going to issue a statement. In effect, we are going to respond. And the response that was envisaged was going to be the statement that was, I take it, already being prepared or had been prepared. The second part of the question is, of course, the action one. So perhaps you could put the two questions separately, and we'll then get two separate answers.
Let me do that, Chair. Minister, I apologize. Let me deal with the first issue. When Mr. Ramaphosa indicated to you that he thought that you were silent on what had happened at Lonmin, did you agree with him?
Well, what happened on the day is that when he raised the matter telephonically to say that we are silent, and as I said that, we said we're not silent. Already, during the day, we had agreed that we must issue a statement in relation to what was going on, Mr. Chairman, then.
And in fact, it went further than that, had it not, Minister. Can we look at quadruple Q 1.1? We see, Minister, that this is a press article dated the 14th of August. It's at 16:55. So will you confirm that that would have been before any discussion between you and Mr. Ramaphosa?
No, I can't recall.
It looks like it, doesn't it? The telephone conversation that we saw from the telephone records occurred, you know, the one with 3.5 minutes, occurred at about sometime just after 6:30 in the evening. And this article written by Mr. Rees has the timeline 16:55, that's 5 to 5. So this was about slightly over an hour and a half before you had your conversation with Mr. Ramaphosa. That appears right, doesn't it?
Yes, it means I spoke to him after I had gone to Brabpan.
Yes, no, you spoke to him, according to the telephone records, after 6:30 in the evening. Whereas this report that Advocate Pillay is putting to was apparently published electronically at least, at 5 to 5 that afternoon. So it was about an hour and a half before you spoke to Mr. Ramaphosa. That appears to be correct. Am I right?
Well, if I look at the time and the previous one in the records of the telephones or of the phone calls, it will be correct.
And in this press report, Minister, we see that the writer is referring to a visit that you made to Brabpan and certain comments that you made there in relation to what was transpiring at Lonmin. And specifically, if you look at the third paragraph, it stated, meanwhile, Minister of Mineral Resources Susan Shabangu was in Brabpan, where she told the media that finding peace is now the key concern. Now, did that relate to what was happening at Lonmin at the time?
That's correct.
And you go further, Minister. As a country, we have a law and we must abide by the law. She said, indicating that if workers wanted to go on strike, they have to use the steps provided by the labor relations laws.
Indeed, it's true.
And further, it is not only about Lonmin at the moment, it is about the mining industry as a whole. It is about stabilizing the whole platinum sector. Do you see that, Minister?
That's correct.
Have you confirmed that that's what you said in Brabpan?
Confirmed.
And importantly, and this is the part I'd like to deal with, you say it is unacceptable to see people dying.
Indeed, that's correct.
So from this we see, Minister, that by the 14th, you were aware that there had been multiple deaths as a result of what was happening at Lonmin during the period.
That's correct.
And you clearly were speaking out about those, both the strike and the violence, because you made this statement on the 14th.
That's correct.
So when Mr. Ramaphosa says to you on the evening of the 14th that your silence and inaction is not appropriate, that's not exactly an accurate reflection of what you knew and what you were saying at that stage.
But well, if you look at, Mr. Chairman, the statement, it was a statement made with the media whilst I was at Brabpan. And it was not yet published by then. I would assume that it was not in the public space because I had gone to deal with issues of illegal mining. So when the media approached me and raised these issues, this is how I responded. So it was not in the public space yet.
But the important part I just want to emphasize, Minister, is at that stage you knew about the violence at Lonmin.
Well, if, Mr. Chairman, I would say I didn't know, I would be telling a lie because it was public knowledge. It was in the media, it was all over. So if I say I didn't know, I would really be lying to the Commission.
And because you saw what was happening at Lonmin to be closely related to what was happening to the platinum sector at large, it was of keen interest to you to be kept abreast of what was happening at Lonmin.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would say yes, indeed, because we regulate the industry. It's in our interest to know what is going on there.
Now, if we can go back to B 4.1. The last thing I want to deal with you on this particular email, Minister, is the last line of paragraph 1, where Mr. Ramaphosa says, I told her that I would also be in Cape Town and suggested that we have a discussion, and this is the important bit, and see what she needs to do. Does that accord with your recollection of your telephone discussion with Mr. Ramaphosa?
Whether I recall, but indeed, it was important for me to respond, Mr. Chairman, because it was a cause for concern. If you read my statement and that statement, they are correlating.
Minister, my question is a different one. Mr. Ramaphosa says here that the discussion that you and he were to have the next day would be about what you need to do. That's the important, but are you confirming that that was what you and he had agreed on the 14th?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Now, we know, Minister, that on the 13th of August, you received a letter from Lonmin. Can I just refer you to quadruple Q2? No, it's quadruple Q2, the letter from Lonmin. We see, Minister, that this is a letter addressed to you by Mr. Albert Jamison, who was the Chief Commercial Officer of Lonmin at the time. Do you recall whether you actually received this letter, Minister?
Only saw it the following week.
I see, so you didn't receive this letter on...
I never received it. I only find it in my office after the following week because I
You'll
was not in
notice
the
it's
office.
sent to her office in Pretoria at the Trevena campus.
Now, the one issue I wanted to deal with in relation to this letter, Minister, and
The question I want to deal with before Advocate Pillay deals with her further question, to get the context right. The letter was sent to your Pretoria office at the Trevena campus, so that's why you say you only saw it the following week. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
I see it at the end of the letter. It was copied to Dr. Ramanija. He was the DG of your department, was he?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Now, did you have discussions with Dr. Ramanija during the course of the period from the 13th of August to the 16th?
Let me explain, Mr. Chairman. On the 13th, I was not in the office. On the 14th, I was not in the office. I was out in the field. On the 15th, I was in Cape Town. Then came back on the 15th in the evening from Cape Town to prepare for my Women's Day conference, which was on the 16th. So before then, this letter, whilst it was sent to the office, I never had an opportunity, or it was never brought directly to my attention before then.
You haven't answered my question. I'll repeat it. During the period from the 13th to the 16th of August, did you have any discussions or communications with the DG of your department?
No, not yet, Mr. Chairman.
I see. Thank you.
Minister, if I could ask you to turn to the second page of that letter. And we see in the last paragraph of that letter that Lonmin is making two suggestions to you. Now, we accept that you didn't receive the letter on the 13th, but I'd like to deal with these two suggestions very briefly with you, Minister. The two suggestions they're making is that, one, the state should bring its might to bear on this crucial sector, which is more or less consistent with what we see happen during the period in question. Do you agree, Minister?
Mr. Chairman, can you repeat yourself?
I'm saying the first bullet point. Now, when we look back with hindsight, the two suggestions made by Lonmin before the tragedy of the 16th. Let's deal with the first one, where Lonmin is saying that there are two suggestions. The first suggestion is that the state should bring its might to bear on this crucial sector, using resources at its disposal to resolutely bring the situation under control. Now, you will agree that when we look at, for example, quadruple B4, and your meeting with Mr. Ramaphosa, Mr. Ramaphosa's discussions with the Minister of Police at the time, etc., that seems to be consistent with what transpired during the period.
Well, I can't say yes because I saw it very late. It never came to my attention, so I can't confirm it.
what the question is, Minister, is when you look at the first suggestion, that the state put its full might to bear in order to bring the situation in Lonmin under control, that is consistent with what actually happened over the period in question. Isn't that correct?
I'm not privy to this detail which you're referring me to, so hence I can't confirm the issue of state intelligence, the issue of the army, all those issues. I can't confirm, you know.
But let's deal with the second suggestion, Minister. And I raise this with you because it's going to become quite an important theme for the further questions that I'm going to pose to you during the course of the morning. The second one is perhaps you could invite NUM and AMCU top leadership with our executive and others in the mining industry to meet with you in an effort to understand the drivers of the situation, but at the very least to issue a joint statement condemning the violence and urging all to work together to restore peace and stability. Now, the second suggestion, Minister, wouldn't that have been a very logical way to approach the violence at Lonmin at the time?
Well, we regarded that as a labor matter. Whilst we were concerned about the violence, to invite them, maybe it would have been logic, but unfortunately we never saw this proposal.
You as Minister were aware about the labor matter, we accept that. You were also keenly aware of the violence which accompanied the strike. Isn't that correct?
Indeed, it was. I was aware.
You were concerned about the effect of the strike and the violence on the platinum sector as a whole. Isn't that correct?
Indeed. It was a concern for anyone who's a South African.
In fact, we see from your statements, Minister, that it goes beyond that you were keenly aware of the importance of presenting the mining sector as the sector of choice for investment in South Africa. Isn't that correct?
I'm not privy about making mining a sector of choice in South Africa.
Did you not, Minister, weren't you keen on attracting foreign investment to the mining sector during your time as Minister of Mineral Resources?
Well, that's part of a responsibility of any government to invite investments into its country.
And so the stability of the mining sector was an important factor in respect of how you conducted your work as the Minister of Mineral Resources.
That's correct.
And the stability of the platinum sector would have been a key component to you effectively performing your function as Minister of Mineral Resources.
That's correct.
And therefore, instability at Lonmin was key, a key concern for you in terms of not only what was happening at Lonmin, but the platinum sector as a whole, and therefore the economy as a whole.
That's correct.
So at the time when you were aware about the strike, you were aware about the underlying labor issue, but you were also aware of the violence that accompanied the strike and the instability that this caused. Why did you not consider bringing about all of the stakeholders to try and understand, or bringing together all the stakeholders to try and understand what was the drivers of the violence, what was causing the violence, and whether or not there was any possibility of bringing about an amicable resolution?
Well, we had engaged with the Chamber of Mines, Mr. Chairman, which was better placed to bring the parties together, because at that point, what was at play, it was not AMCU as such, but there were workers' committees which were involved. So we had a discussion with the Chamber of Mines to intervene in trying to bring parties together.
Minister, as I understand your statement, the initiative by the Chamber of Mines was just that. It was their initiative. That was not an initiative that was instigated by the government.
We did influence that because I spoke to Mr. Teke, who was the Deputy President of the Chamber.
So I understand you, Minister, to be saying that you requested the Chamber of Mines to initiate a process which would bring all the stakeholders together to try and resolve the situation.
We had a discussion with the Deputy President of the Chamber to facilitate, because at that point in time, for us as the department or as government, we had never interacted with AMCU, and the information we had was that there were various players through, what do you call it, committees, workers' committees at Lonmin.
But Minister, was it not open to your office at that stage to take the initiative and bring about the situation in the second bullet point there, rather than wait for the Chamber of Mines to do it?
The Chamber was already involved, and ours, it's that the issue was about workers' committees at that point. And in terms of our MIGDET arrangement, we had never engaged with AMCU before.
Did not the deteriorating circumstances perhaps call for a different approach initiated by your offices?
We never initiated as the office, because the Chamber also does become involved when it comes to labor matters at various points. And hence we thought that the proposal by the Chamber, as we're having a discussion that they must take over and bring the parties together, was better.
And so you accept, Minister, that there was no initiative driven by your office, driven by the DMR, to try and bring the stakeholders together in order to understand the cause of the violence and to try and bring about an amicable resolution?
We didn't become involved at the initial stages.
I think, Minister, I think we should just go back to quadruple B 4.1 very briefly. I just want to tie up one loose end. If we can go back to 4.1, I did mention to you that on the 15th, we do see a press report reflecting a statement by your spokesperson. And I just want us to refer to that press report. It's quadruple Q 1.3. And if we can just go further down, you'll see that your spokeswoman issues a statement, Minister. The Minister is gravely concerned and is condemning the violence at Lonmin's Marikana mine and will engage the Minister of Police. Do you see that?
That's correct.
Now, Minister, I'm going to put to you that there's a clear difference in tone between this statement issued by your spokesperson on the 15th and the statement you made at Brabpan on the 14th. On the 14th, you recognize the deaths at Lonmin and you indicate that the deaths are unacceptable. On the 15th, after your discussions with Mr. Ramaphosa, we see a different tone to your statement, because now your statement's indicating we will engage with the Minister of Police. Now, can you tell us, Minister, specifically what is it that you are going to engage with the Minister of Police about?
Well, if you read my statement on the 14th and what was issued by the spokesperson, it's two different statements. I've never said I'll engage the police, Mr. Chairman.
So when your spokeswoman is quoted as saying that the Minister is concerned, that she's condemning the violence, and that she will engage with the Minister of Police, are you saying that she was wrongly quoted, that you never indicated that you will engage with the Minister of Police?
Well, I've never said I'll engage with the Minister of Police, Mr. Chairman. In fact, during this period, the spokesperson was sick because she was responsible for planning for the Women's Day, and she was not at work. We only saw her on the 16th. There were other issues she was supposed to deal with, and she was not to be found anywhere.
So you deny, Minister, that on the 15th, you were intending to engage with the Minister of Police on what was happening at Lonmin?
Well, on the 15th, I raised it with Mr. Ramaphosa, but I've never said the spokesperson must issue the statement.
We know what time the statement is now on the screen, which is the third item in the bundle, so it's presumably exhibit quadruple Q 1.3. Do we know at what time that statement was issued?
Unfortunately, this is a SAPA press report, so there's no time reflected in the actual report.
Right. Well, perhaps I can interrupt you for a moment, Ms. Pillow, by asking this question. Can you tell us, I don't think you've told us yet, but you told us more or less, but can you tell us roughly what time you met Mr. Ramaphosa on the Wednesday in the passage between Good Hope and the Tonays? The meeting was 10:30. I understood you to say it was before the meeting.
It was before 10:30, Mr. Chairman.
Was it just before 10:30, closer to 10 o'clock? Or?
Well, I cannot be specific, but it was just...
it was before 10:30.
It was before 10:30.
And did you at any stage speak to anyone in your department, or was someone from your department present when you spoke to Mr. Ramaphosa, so that people in the department, apart from you, would know that you'd had this discussion with Mr. Ramaphosa and there'd been mention of your communicating with the Minister of Police?
Mr. Chairman, no one was there. I was alone with Mr. We bumped into each other. So
you bumped into each other by design, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. It was by design, yes, coming out of that.
You see, it does look as if someone in your department, even if Ms. Jakuja was off sick, presumably she spoke to the journalist concerned, and she appears to have known, or possibly to have thought, that you were going to engage with the Minister of Police, and we know that you spoke to Mr. Ramaphosa just before 10:30 about talking to the Minister of Police, because that's what you told us. So is it possible that that information somehow got across to someone in the department, even though the discussion between you and Mr. Ramaphosa was on a one-to-one basis?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I must say that no one in the department knew about what I was going to raise or discuss with Mr. Ramaphosa.
Concern was something different, and that after you had your meeting with Mr. Ramaphosa, according to what you've told us, you were going to, am I right? You were going to endeavour to contact the Minister of Police. I think you told us you weren't able to do so, but you were going to endeavour to contact him. So, which I take it means you were going to engage with him, whatever that expression means. Now, my question is: did anybody in your department, after your brief meeting with Mr. Ramaphosa in the passage between Good Hope and the Tonays, did anyone in your department know that you were going to endeavour to contact the Minister of Police, that you were going, in other words, to endeavour to, quote, engage with the Minister of Police?
Mr. Chairman, may I state, no one knew. I was in Cape Town, and the spokesperson was in Pretoria or around Pretoria, and I never had an opportunity to engage anyone from the department.
I think when you're in Cape Town, you have officials with you, do you? You don't come in. You're not the only person from the parliamentary office of the department in Cape Town at that stage. Was Parliament not sitting at the time?
Mr. Chairman, can you rephrase your question?
I say, you were in Cape Town to attend this meeting. Was no one else from your department or from the parliamentary office of your department in Cape Town that day?
Mr. Chairman, when I'm in Cape Town, we have a parliamentary officer who works there. Then I have my personal assistant. I have the receptionist. I have the clerk in the office. So when it comes to such matters, Mr. Chairman, I don't discuss with them because it issues distance from them.
Are you telling us that you didn't tell anybody in your department that you were going, about your discussion with Mr. Ramaphosa and what you were going to try to do after your discussion with Mr. Ramaphosa.
Indeed, Mr. Chairman, I had no discussion with my office, nor anyone in the department about, first, my engagement with Mr. Ramaphosa. Two, on what is it that I was going to discuss with Mr. Ramaphosa.
Understand that. But after the meeting with Mr. Ramaphosa, you went straight into the Cabinet Committee meeting, didn't you?
Indeed, I went into the straight cabinet meeting.
Yes, and how long did the Cabinet Committee meeting take?
Well, it was not a long meeting, a long committee that day, because there were fewer items on the agenda.
And when it was over, what did you do?
Well, when it was over, I went back to the office.
You went back to, that's the parliamentary office
Yes.
of your department.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And you meet anybody there who's on the staff of the department?
No.
Your PA?
The PA was there.
Yeah.
I don't discuss substantive issues with the personal assistant, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else in the parliamentary office there?
Well, the parliamentary officer, she's responsible for coordination of parliamentary issues, so I don't discuss with her such matters.
You say you told no one in your department about what you discussed with Mr. Ramaphosa. Is that your evidence?
That's true, Mr. Chairman.
Did you tell anybody at all, apart from people in your office? You know, because information might have got to Ms. Zakuja by some slightly longer route. Did you tell anybody at all after your meeting with Ramaphosa, Mr. Ramaphosa,
Well,
briefly, what you discussed with him and what you had undertaken to do?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I told nobody because the people I thought I was going to raise with, they were not there. So because the actual people I wanted to raise with this matter were not available, I didn't see any necessity to raise it with my office.
Thank you. Did Mr. Ramaphosa communicate any sense of urgency to you when he spoke to you?
We spoke about the violence.
And action to deal with the violence would have been urgent, I take it.
Well, we didn't talk about the action. I just indicated that I was going to raise it with the President and raise it with the Minister of Police.
Yeah, but raising it, never mind the President's moment, raising with the Minister of Police, would that have been an urgent matter, or was that something that you could do in the course of time?
Well, I intended to raise with them because it had a direct bearing with violence which was going on, but also with the President to say the sector is facing a challenge.
No, my question was more concerned about the urgency of the matter. Urgency of the need, as Mr. Ramaphosa had mentioned, for you to raise it with the Minister of Police. Was that an urgent matter that you had to do as quickly as you could, as soon as you could? Or was it something that could wait till next week?
Well, I wanted to raise it with the Cabinet because that would have been the appropriate forum for me. With the President, who is my employer, or who I account to, I was going to raise it with the President. Unfortunately, I did not find the President because it means I was also going to seek guidance from those people in dealing with the matter.
From which people were you going to seek guidance?
It was the President and the Minister of Police then.
I see. And now the President, I take it, wouldn't have been at this Cabinet Committee meeting, would he?
The President was not available on that particular day, and the Minister of Police was not there.
I see, thank you.
Now, Minister, I'd like to go to Exhibit B 4.2.
Mr. Chairman, I'm so sorry to intervene. I just know from the exchange which has just occurred that it may save a lot of time and delay later on if the witness can simply clarify who normally attends these Cabinet Committee meetings. It might be helpful.
I'd like a good suggestion, Mr. Bardner. I'm sure, Ms. Pillay, you don't mind adopting Mr. Bardner's question.
Not at all. As long as I get some of Mr. Bardner's time, Chair. No, that's in jest. No, I don't.
Of course. Well, he's given you quite a lot of his time because he didn't take very long in chief, did he? All right. You've heard Mr. Bardner's question, which Ms. Pillay has adopted. Repeat the question there, just so the witness understands exactly what it is.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I can see that this is something that might save a lot of time later on, and by all means my learned friend can have all the time she needs from me, subject to your approval. The question is...
I'm in the queue, the chairperson.
The witness should perhaps be requested to explain who she expected might be at this cabinet committee meeting from normal attendance, because I think we normally would suppose that the cabinet committee meetings are not attended by the president or the Minister of Police, and that's something that perhaps she should clarify.
Don't explain the answer you expect. Let's just Mr. Shabangu, you've heard what Mr. Barton said. Who are the people whom you normally would expect to see at a cabinet committee meeting of the kind that you were going to attend?
Well, we have about 5 cabinet committees, which differs, and this particular one is the one on economy and employment infrastructure committee. You would normally expect that it sits on a fortnight. They sit on fortnight, and fortnight it's the cabinet meeting, the full cabinet. In the committees, it's those who attend, it's the relevant ministers when it comes to the economic cluster who will deal with economy, and their deputies. That would also include the president, if he's around, and the deputy president. And also to further say that with ministers can attend any cabinet committee if they want to. So on the basis of that, I had thought that the Minister of Police will be attending, because on Wednesdays the social cluster CAP committee sits before the economic cluster. So I was hoping to see him there, or if he had attended, or together with the economic committee meeting. So that's how it's structured. And the president can attend, the deputy president can attend if they want to or they are available.
I take it none of those gentlemen was present.
No, none of those were.
The president, I think, was in Maputo at a SADC meeting. That's according to the evidence we've heard.
On a Wednesday, he had not left for Maputo.
He hadn't left yet, but he was going there.
He was going to go to Maputo.
He was there when a message was sent to him stating in the course of that evening, early hours of the next morning, what had happened in Marikana. So he was on his way to Maputo or shortly to leave for Maputo. Is that correct?
That might have been correct, because the SADC was starting on Thursday.
Yes, and the deputy president, he wasn't there either, not at the cabinet committee meeting.
He was not. If my memory serves well, I don't think he was there. And
according to the Minister of Police, he was traveling around in KwaZulu, the KwaZulu province, KwaZulu-Natal province, in the course of his duties as Minister of Police. So he wasn't there either.
But he was not available in the meeting. He did not attend the CAPE committee meeting.
Minister, you are intending to speak to the Minister of Police and the President. What is it that you were intending to raise with him?
I intended to raise the violence which was going on around Marikana.
But we know that you knew about the violence already on the 14th. So why is it that you only waited until after your discussion with Mr. Ramaphosa in order to urgently raise these issues with the Minister of Police and the President?
It had nothing to do with Mr. Ramaphosa. I had already made my own decision that when I see my colleagues, I will raise this matter.
So your discussion with Mr. Ramaphosa didn't serve as some form of catalyst, which pointed you to raising the issue with the Minister of Police and the President?
Not at all.
Now, when you raised the matter, when you discussed the violence with the Minister of Police and the President, what is it that you wanted them to do?
Well, when you reach a point and you realize that the issue is bigger than you raise it with relevant people. Because I thought it's important, and it is a convention in government that if a minister has an issue which he believes he wants to share with the President, we do that. So there was nothing untoward.
that wasn't really the question, Minister, but before I deal with that, can I just ask you, you said when you reach a point when you realize the issue is bigger than you. When did you reach that point, Minister, when you realized that the issue at Lonmin was bigger than you?
When that started occurring.
Sorry, when what started occurring, Minister?
People started being killed during this process.
Well, we know that people started being killed already early on, already on the evening, on the morning of the 11th. So on the 11th, early in the morning on the 12th. Early in the morning on the 12th. So when you say, Minister, that when that happened, that was on the 12th. So when did that issue become bigger than you?
Bigger than me when I realized that I've got to report it to the President, to the Minister of Police.
And when did you realize that?
I don't know.
Now, I asked Minister, I'm not sure that the answer was a direct one to my question. I asked you, what is it that you wanted the Minister of Police or the President to do?
Well, if you have an issue, Mr. Chairman, which you realize it's not in your control, you raise it with relevant people. It was not going to be correct for me just to keep quiet because I had to ask brief the President to say there's this situation happening within the mining industry through the Lonmin situation.
But you see, Minister, you choose specifically the Minister of Police. You don't want to raise this, for example, with the Minister of Labour, even though you have characterized this as a labour issue. You choose to raise this with the Minister of Police and with the President. Now, why specifically the Minister of Police?
Well, I raised it because people were dying.
I think it was more complicated than that. It wasn't just people were dying, people were being killed. And prima facie, when people are being killed, there is very often an element of criminal responsibility. People are being, if they are killed, unless they die of natural causes or something akin to that, they're very often, circumstances of the kind we're dealing with, would be killed because they're either being murdered or someone is killing them in circumstances which amount to culpable homicide. So there's a criminal element in the case of this, very often in the case of this kind. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Now, when Mr. Ramaphosa spoke to you in the passageway that you've talked about, did he ask you to speak to the Minister, please?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Did he suggest to you you should consider speaking to the Minister, please?
No, Mr. Chairman. I'm the one who raised the matter. Yeah. I'm the one who said to him, I intend to raise the matter with the President and intend to raise the matter with the Minister of Police.
And what else did you tell him?
Those are the issues which I said I'm going to raise with the President.
Did you say what you were going to say to the Minister, please?
No, we never discussed what I was going to say to the President or to the Minister of Police. When he also said there was a need for me to meet with their chairman was coming to South Africa. His proposal was that I must meet with Mr. Roger Philimo.
Is Mr. Jamison correct in this email that we have on the screen at the moment, quadruple B4, when he says that that morning, that's say the morning of Wednesday, the 15th of August, you said that you'd been briefed that this was a wage dispute and that management and unions should sit down and sort it out. Well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Did you appear on the? Did you have an interview with the radio on that Wednesday morning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did.
Was it on the SAFM?
It was on SAFM.
It was an AM Live program, I take it.
I think so.
Yes. So if necessary, we can get a recording from what you said. Can you remember what you said?
It was a phone. I was phoned by Mr. Xolani Gwala asking me about the situation, what is happening there, and I said the issue which the current challenge whilst there were killings there, it was a labor dispute. It emanates from wage negotiations of the two parties and the conflict between NUM and what was then the workers' committees at Lonmin.
And did you make the statement that is reported in this letter that, having said it was a wage dispute, as you just told us, did you say that management and the unions should sit down and sort it out?
Yes, I did say the parties need to come together and address the wage dispute.
And when Mr. Ramaphosa spoke to you, did he mention what you'd said on the radio and the characterization you'd given to the dispute?
I don't think he did raise it.
Not say to you, so I shouldn't put it in a leading form, did he say to you that this is far more than a wage dispute? This is a tragic series of events which involve criminal issues because serious crimes would appear to be committed, to being committed. Did he say that to you?
I raised it first to say there's a criminal element. People are dying. People are dying, and indeed, we're seeing a criminal act creeping into the situation.
And what was his comment when you said that?
Well, he agreed with me.
And you then told him you were going to raise it, you said, with the President and with the Minister of Police.
Mr. Chairman, then I said, that's precisely why I want to raise it with the President and the Minister of Police.
I take it he was satisfied when you told him that?
Well,
as far as you could tell?
Yeah, he was fine with it, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you.
Now, if we can go to triple B 4.6, Minister. This is an email from Mr. Ramaphosa to Mr. Jamison and others, where he reports back on the discussion he had with you in Cape Town. Now, he says, "Dear all, I have just had a discussion with Susan Shabangu in Cape Town. 1, she agrees that what we are going through is not a labor dispute but a criminal act. And she will correct her characterization of what we are experiencing." Now, what it appears from 1 is that this specific issue was raised with you, Minister, by Mr. Ramaphosa during the discussion, and that he persuaded you that what they are going through is not a labor dispute but a criminal act.
I'm not sure that the persuasion element appears in paragraph 1. Paragraph 1 conveys the fact there was agreement, and it conveys the fact that she would correct the characterization. But I'm not sure whether you can say that these words in themselves convey unmistakably the impression that this agreement was the result of persuasion.
I think, Chair, let me rephrase the question, particularly if you look at the last line of paragraph 1. She will correct her characterization of what we are experiencing. So it's clear from this, Minister, that Mr. Ramaphosa raised with you his view that you had incorrectly characterized the problem as a labor problem and not a criminal problem. What is your response to that?
I disagree, Mr. Chairman.
So you disagree that that was raised with you by Mr. Ramaphosa?
I disagree with what is written here to say, I will correct my characterization.
Did you not say to him that, having said already what you told us you said during the radio interview with Mr. Gwala about it being a wage dispute, management, the unions and so on were sorted out, did you not say to her, did you not say to him, that you would correct that characterization and you would mention in future statements that there was this aspect of criminality which required attention? Did you not say that to him at all?
Well, Mr. Chairman, the issue of saying that it's no longer a labor dispute, that's what I'm correcting. And now it's been characterized as a criminal act. I've never said we are characterizing that dispute now as criminal, because the dispute was relevant. What I said, what was creeping in, was criminality or a criminal act. But it does not change the strike or the labor dispute to be a criminal or criminalizing the strike itself or the illegal action.
Minister, I accept that. If I can, I asked you earlier what it is that you wanted the President and specifically the Minister of Police to do. And if you look at paragraph 2 of Mr. Ramaphosa's email, it seems to address that point because he says she is going into cabinet and will brief the President, and this is the important part, as well, and get the Minister of Police, Natim Tetwa, to act in a more pointed way. Now, is that a correct reflection of your discussion with Mr. Ramaphosa?
It's not a correct reflection. When I say I will raise it with the cabinet, with the President and the Minister of Police, it does not necessarily talk about a pointed way. I will raise it. I will raise it with the Minister. I think we need to realize...
What's the point of raising it with the Minister? I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry, you want to finish your answer first?
I'm saying that I will raise it, it does not mean that I wanted to have, or in the way it's written here. I've never, my intention was to raise it with him.
Raise it with him, but what do you want him to do about it? Why raise it? Why raise it with him if you didn't intend him to do anything? You must have intended him to do something.
Well,
that's why you raised it, surely?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I had to raise it with him because people were dying.
No,
and yes,
I understand.
You know, you raise an issue not on the basis of that you want a particular action. Yes, you might look for an action, but many actions could come up.
Yes,
He's the Minister of Police. He knows what is going on.
So you raised it with him. I take it. Look, I don't want to put words in your mouth because this is very important. But it's important we should understand what you're saying. You raised it with him, I take it, because you want him to do something or cause something to be done. Would that be correct?
Well, if you're going to a cabinet committee or a cabinet meeting and you raise the issue at that level, you're also looking at a possibility that they might come up with a solution or discuss it in cabinet. Hence, that's why I'm talking about the President, I'm talking about the Minister, because it was an issue which was beyond myself as the Minister of Mineral Resources.
I understand that. But what Mr. Ramaphosa says, that you said that you were going to get the Minister of Police to act in a more pointed way. Now, you were going to raise it with him, that you concede that. And I understand you to concede, or am I wrong in my understanding, that your intention in raising it with him was to get him to take some action. Would that be fair?
Well, for him to look at the situation as a Minister of Police.
Yes. And obviously to do something.
Indeed, we expect him to do something about it.
Yes. So it is correct to say that you were going to raise it with him to get him to do something. That's correct.
Well, Mr. Chairman, when you have something which is beyond your control, yes, you pass it on to other people.
No, I understand that. Pillay, it's now time when we normally take the first comfort break. When it's convenient for you, please let me know, and we'll take the break.
Chair, it's convenient. It's a convenient time.
We'll take a break now for 1/4 hour.
See what you did.